All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're traveling all the way back to August 26th, 1071, to unpack a moment in history that, and I'm not exaggerating here, literally redrew the map of the world. Picture this. You're standing on a dusty, windswept field near Manzikert in eastern Anatolia. This right here? This is the exact moment a centuries-old empire fractures, and a brand new one starts to take root. We're going to look at the strategies, the incredible betrayals, and the shocking aftermath of this one single clash. To really grasp the stakes here, you have to know how this battle actually ended, because the drama is just off the charts. Picture the dust finally settling. The Byzantine emperor, Romanos IV, in his gleaming gold armor, has been forced to his knees in the dirt. Standing right over him is a Turkic Khan, Alp Arslan. He's wearing a sheepskin coat, and he literally places his boot on the emperor's neck. But then, an incredibly stunning exchange happens. The emperor fully expects to be executed, but Alp Arslan chooses mercy instead. It's this cinematic moment of forgiveness that completely defies everything we expect from ancient warfare. And that specific act of mercy perfectly illustrates why we're talking about this today. Before the sun set on Manzikert, Anatolia was the absolute heartland of the Christian, Greek-speaking Roman Empire, what we now call the Byzantine Empire. But after this day, the gates were literally thrown open, and the region began its massive transformation into the Turkish, Muslim, Ottoman heartland that we know today. Section 1. The Road to Manzikert. The Seljuk Rise. So to see exactly how these two massive empires collided, we have to rewind a bit and look at the Seljuk Turks. These guys were originally steppe warriors who had converted to Sunni Islam, and over just 3 decades they expanded their territory westward like a slow, completely unstoppable tide. In 1040, they crushed the Ghaznavids. By 1055, they're already ruling Iran, Iraq, and Syria, basically acting as the muscle, the protectors of the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad. Then jump to 1064, Alp Arslan captures the Armenian capital of Ani, and the Byzantine frontier violently begins to crack. It all builds perfectly to 1071.
Section 2. Clash of the Titans, the two rulers.
Driving this gathering storm were two completely, totally different leaders. On one side, you have the Seljuk leader, Alp Arslan. Now, his name literally translates to heroic lion, which is pretty fitting. He is a highly seasoned commander, entirely undefeated, and just an absolute master of steppe tactics. Think fast-moving horse archers, feigned retreats, rapid encirclements, the whole shebang. On the other side, you've got the Byzantine emperor, Romanos IV Diogenes. He is an ambitious general who actually married the empress just to secure his throne. He's only been ruling for about 3 years at this point, and he is incredibly desperate to prove his legitimacy and just crush this frontier threat once and for all. The sheer confidence of the Byzantines was honestly staggering. The Byzantine historian Michael Ataliadis captured the mood perfectly. They fully believed they were marching this unstoppable juggernaut out east to just sweep the enemy away. But setting up the ultimate underdog story, Alp Arslan was not intimidated in the slightest. When he heard about this absolute mountain of tents marching toward him, he famously fired back that he would meet them with arrows like rain. And the crucial point here really comes down to the numbers. Romanos had a massive, massive tactical advantage. He brought anywhere from 40,000 to 60,000 men. We're talking a force packed with devastating heavy cavalry and those legendary axe-wielding Varangian guards. Alp Arslan, on the other hand, well, he was relying on a much smaller force, roughly 20 to 30,000 men, and mostly light horse archers at that. So, on paper anyway, the Byzantines should have absolutely crushed the Seljuks, no contest. Section 3. Treason on the battlefield. Okay, let's go blow by blow through the actual events of August 26th. In the morning, Romanos forms his massive battle line, but he actually splits his army, which turns out to be a fatal mistake. By midday, Alp Arslan puts on an absolute masterclass in steppe warfare. He doesn't engage directly. Instead, his horse archers skirmish and then pretend to run away in a feigned retreat. This totally tricks the Byzantine right wing into chasing them out of formation and right up into the hills. Then, in the afternoon, disaster strikes. The wing commanded by Andronikos Doukas commits outright treason and just abandons the field. Gone. By sunset, the remaining Byzantine forces are completely surrounded. The Varangian guard fights bravely to the death. Romanos has his horse killed right out from under him, and the emperor himself is captured. I really want to pause and emphasize the sheer scale of what happened in that afternoon phase. 20,000. That is the number of men commanded by the Byzantine general Andronikos Doukas, who rode off the battlefield without even swinging a sword. Doukas was secretly plotting against Romanos back in the capital, and he literally used this critical do-or-die moment to abandon his emperor. It wasn't just a military defeat, it was a devastating knife in the back.
Section 4. Unlikely forgiveness, the neck moment.
So this brings us right back to that climax we started with, inside Alp Arslan's tent. Romanos is thrown to the floor. He's filthy, exhausted, wearing actual rags, fully expecting to be executed. But instead, Alp Arslan offers the unthinkable, forgiveness. And his reasoning is just brilliantly pragmatic. Alp Arslan says, if I had killed him, they would call me a tyrant. If I let him go free without terms, they would call me a fool. I chose the middle path. He acts like a true statesman here. Instead of taking the emperor's life, he demands a heavy ransom, a peace treaty, and a marriage alliance. But here is the deeply tragic, almost Shakespearean irony of the whole story. Romanos actually survives the enemy camp, but he cannot survive his own people. When he returns to Constantinople, the betrayal just continues. The political faction of the very man who abandoned him on the battlefield seizes power. Romanos is blinded, he's exiled, and he ultimately dies from his brutal wounds. The enemy showed him mercy, but Byzantine treachery did what Alp Arslan wouldn't.
Section 5. Birth of Turkey, Aftermath and Legacy.
Because Romanos was overthrown, a massive civil war erupted in the Byzantine Empire. Their entire eastern defense system just totally collapsed. With the border undefended, Turkic frontier warriors, the Ghazis, flooded straight into the Anatolian plateau. New Turkic principalities, or beyliks, like the Danishmends and Seljukids, sprouted up everywhere, eventually leading to the establishment of the Sultanate of Rome. And they called it Rome, or Rome, because the Turks were now basically occupying Roman land. By the year 1100, the Turkish language was being spoken in cities like Konya, Ankara, and Sivas. For Turkish history, the Battle of Manzikert is celebrated as the absolute turning point. It is basically the Battle of Hastings and the Reconquista rolled into one.
The stark reality of this shift becomes incredibly clear just a couple of decades later. 20 years after Manzikert, the first crusader arrives from Western Europe. Now, the Byzantines had been begging the Pope and Western knights for help to take their land back. But by the time the crusaders actually showed up, the demographic and cultural shift was already permanent. Anatolia was no longer a Roman stronghold. It had become something entirely new.
Which leaves us with this final, massive what-if. Think about the butterfly effect here. If that one general, Andronikos Doukas, hadn't betrayed his emperor out of sheer political greed, if those 20,000 men had just held the line, the Byzantines very likely would have crushed the Seljuk army. So I'll leave you with this. Without that single act of battlefield treason, would the Ottoman Empire and the modern nation of Turkey as we know it today even exist? It's a wild reminder of how the entire course of human history can pivot on a single, fateful decision in the dirt. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time.